gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, bam!
Wow. Hey, actually, right off the bat, I always forget this right at the beginning. I have to share this out real quick to the Save New York
Group.
All right, let me do that real quick, and then we will be all set. It just takes a few seconds here. Okay, let's see. We're going to share it to a group.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Here we go.
Happy Wednesday.
And post. Okay. That should start right now on the group. So anyways, all right. So everybody, we're here with Mary Ellen. All right. And we probably, a lot of people probably already saw it like on the post earlier that she's a whistleblower and a federal witness to something that happened to her here in New York. I'm not quite sure how long ago it was. We talked last night for a while, and I'm like, I didn't get a lot of details about things, but this is important that people understand what's going on with how their lives can be destroyed. And Mary, I mean, if you could let us know, if you could start from the beginning and let us know exactly how it all started and everything, and then get into details, because I'll tell you what, I'm just going to shut up because your story is so interesting that I just want to hear it. So we're going to let it all go to you. But before we do that, we're going to put you in the spotlight. I forgot that also.
There you go.
There you go. All right, Mary, go ahead. Go explain your story if you can from the beginning.
Okay. Well, let me start out by saying I really appreciate this opportunity, because one of the things that was most critical when this first began to happen was being isolated. Because the stories were so incredible, the things that were happening were such a contradiction to what we've been led to believe. And, being a victim of being targeted, and as one kind person told me, you're marked. I didn't quite know what that meant, but it means that the rules don't apply to you. All the safety and security that are in the law books that are guaranteed under Constitution, apparently they can pick and choose who they apply to. So going back, I had a unique position. I was a very successful woman in construction in New York. I started out as a secretary and worked my way up and became very fluid in construction safety, litigation, and health matters. And I'd had about a 25-year legitimate career. I spoke for New York Business Council. I was in press conferences. I was on committees. I was fairly well known within the industry for being very knowledgeable of laws, regulations, and compliance. And I took it all very seriously. My integrity was and still is the most important thing that I put a high value on.
Good for you.
Fast forward, my former boss decided to reward me. And then I used the term, he fraudulently encouraged me to start my own women's business enterprise, construction company, in commercial construction. And he wanted to mentor me, support me, and utilize the relationships that he'd built over the years that I had also built, working for him very successfully in my position as a safety and compliance manager. And I began the process. And once I incorporated and developed all the devices that you need to be a successful and corporation, things began to change. And long story short, what I had figured out is that he had set me up to be a fraudulent company. And I need to explain the background a little bit. The federal, state, and local monies, in order to quote unquote level the playing field for people who may have not had the opportunities that traditional corporations in the construction industry and other industries have had, they put regulations attached to contracts and money that required participation of my credentials were multiple because of my background. I was a woman business enterprise. I was a federally designated disadvantaged business enterprise. And I was one of the few, what they call a hub zone contractor, which
Yeah.
is a historically underutilized business district. There's very strict and stringent requirements, and I met them. Unfortunately, I found out along the way that these programs were never really meant, in my opinion, to really work. And it started down a road, a path that I never could have or would have anticipated. I had obligations under these credentials to report any wrongdoing. And I was I was inspected all the time. But after a while, people in the community knew. And that's, I think, why I was so attractive to people, is nobody would question, because of my integrity, because of my experience in public appearances. No one would have any reason to question whether my business was legitimate or not. And so I found out that I was being used fraudulently for others to gain contracts, specifically my former boss, and to get grants. And it was just a nightmare. It was a living nightmare. But I followed the rules. You take a compliance officer, somebody that kept companies, in business with the EPA and OSHA and all these different federal agencies, and then you try to corrupt them. It wasn't working. And so I was being investigated, annual inspection of my credentials, and I was being asked questions, and I answered them honestly. And those honest answers were exposing my former boss, which I did not know at the time, in my opinion, based on evidence that I had collected, is that the government was involved with him in their intention to use me for compliance.
Did they want you to do something that was illegal?
Oh, I could have gone to federal prison.
If you followed what they wanted, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
People
Was it
were
through a
being
union?
arrested. Pardon me?
Was this through a union? Were you
Well,
a union?
I became a union contractor, and that's another part of the story. I
Oh,
got
okay.
mobbed by them.
Oh my goodness.
I would research things. I was known for my research. And, I was trying to figure things out. And so I would start researching backwards what was happening. And a lot of the plot that happened, especially the judicial warfare from the unions, was mafia related.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was being sued throughout New York by unions for money I never owed.
Wow.
And again, to back up into my history, is being a compliance person, having the career that I did for over 25 years at that time. I knew civil procedure code. I knew what needed to be done. And one night I Googled my name, and I found that the New York and New Jersey Carpenters Union had
Wow.
sued me for $1.3 million and was almost into a default judgment. And, I started going through the records, and everything was fraud. It was forgery.
And you never
But
got notified that you were even being sued.
No, no. And the thing of
Wow.
it was, again, and I don't mean, there is not a pretentious bone in my body. But people forgot who I knew. So I called up the chairman of the trustees of the union and said, "Well, why are you suing me?" I called up the business agents and said, "Why are you suing me? I don't owe you any money." I mean, I paid the union benefits before I paid myself.
Mhm.
I paid the union benefits before anybody else got paid. That was my fiduciary obligation. There's no way I owe this money. At the same time, the Masons Union were suing me for late charges that I didn't owe. Um, and under ERISA, this was in federal court. Uh, All of this was in federal court, this portion of it. Um, ERISA does not cover late charges. It had
Hmm.
no business being in federal court, but there went a default judgment. Um, my former employer, who was the secretary trustee of the laborers union, sued me for $859 in a late charge that I didn't owe and would not take a check for. The same day I got served with that one I knew about, I was sued for defamation after I participated and cooperated with the Department of Justice and the EPA in criminal charges against his company that I was a witness for. And I mean, that's a 2-day story right there of
So,
the laws that were
if you're a
broken.
witness, you're a witness to something that was going wrong, and because you're a witness, that's why they came after you. Is that what you're saying?
They came after me because I forgot the part in the middle here. In the unions, what also happened is I became a whistleblower in the City of Rochester school modernization program.
She's out
That
by you, Charles.
pardon me?
I said, you're out by Charles, out by
Yeah.
Rochester.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, yep.
Oh, no kidding. So
And
you're close to me
I
too.
was a contractor. And unfortunately, what they were doing to veteran women and minority contractors was something out of a movie. A movie. That's all I can say. What they were doing to people, myself included. And along with this modernization program, um, was federal funding legislation. And there were specific rules and regulations in place, again, that were supposed to protect people like us because
Hmm.
it's such a known, and I had no idea. And, and if I start jumping around, there's just so much to it. But I was in construction for 25 years and I had no idea these things went on. People say, well, you should have known, you should have known. How would I know this? This was not my role. I had no idea the monsters and what they did to innocent small businesses. They would make them do work, not pay them, sabotage them, steal their equipment. Um, it was crazy. And again, because I knew the laws, one of the things they did, this is one was amazing. They put in the specifications insurance requirements for the minority contractors that were like 3 times of what was in any normal spec and wasn't even available to be written in New York or probably any place else in the country. So what they do is in these specifications, they put barriers in there to keep us out.
Hmm.
And I exposed it. Um, Originally, it was innocently. And then they were using my identity again to get contracts that I was capable of performing. And then they didn't give me the work.
All right. So
And
how are they using your identity to get contracts? If you could explain that a little bit. How are they
okay,
using your identity? Because I'll tell you
I
why.
submit,
'Cause I want to make sure everybody understands this a little clearer, because sometimes I get a little foggy about things. I'm going, all right, what is she talking about?
yeah,
Just so
well,
people understand, because
okay,
I don't know that business like you do. But go ahead.
right.
Go ahead.
Um, so let's say school 58. I'll use that as an example. Okay.
Right.
So the project and specifications come out, and actually school 58 is a really bad example because it didn't happen that way, but that's another story. But so the specifications come out, and so much work has to be subcontracted
Mm-hmm.
to a veteran woman or a minority contractor.
Okay.
All right. And documents have to be signed, and they are supposedly being submitted to a compliance officer who is supposed to be reviewing them and ensuring that the the state funding legislation is being followed. And quite frankly, that compliance person who I exposed, who was paid $1.7 million to ensure that this was being done, was in on it. He was on the take.
So how
Wow.
are they
And
using your name? How are they using your name though?
I submit a bid,
Hmm.
right? And there's supposed to be steps in place. I'm supposed to get a contract.
Mm-hmm.
All the papers get signed. He's supposed to review them all and
Hmm.
ensure I get the contract. And I don't get the contract. They give it to somebody else or they do the work themselves. And he says, oh, yeah, everything's fine and dandy.
So they make it look like you got the contract.
Right,
I
right.
gotcha.
Or
Or
they
the,
had other things in place, things had to be in by a certain time and that got ignored. And, it's hard for me to explain in detail because it is industry specific and I would be taking you in the weeds. To simplify it, they had established a plot and a plan to use fraudulent companies, use a compliance person who was allegedly in place to ensure we all were protected.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in on it, and nobody was protected. And they were destroying people's lives.
all
They
So
right.
were
this didn't just
destroying.
happen. This just didn't happen to you. Then it happened to other people.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let
But
me
I'm the one that
let me ask
blew
you
it
this.
open.
Let me ask you this then. So
Mhm.
I want to make sure I have it clear in my head. 'Cause I'm not the smartest. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. But anyways, so when you like say you put a contract, right? You submitted
Mhm.
a contract for a
Right.
certain cost, right? For a certain price. Do you feel as though that you put that contract out there that they can use that contract to get somebody cheaper,
No,
or do you?
absolutely. It's called
That's
shopping it out. That's what
that's
happened.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I wanted to make sure that was clear. Okay, because I do contracting too, and that's why
Yeah, me too.
it always bothered me when I threw a contract out there, and I know the customer was going, "Well, this guy's doing it for this price. Can you make it
Right.
cheaper?" So
Right.
that's what that was all about, then, more or
Right.
less,
And
more or
the
less.
legislation, there were stopgaps in place to prevent that because that was the MO, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and this person, was getting paid 1.7 million to follow this legislation that had identified step by step how things were going to happen, and he was in on it.
Got it.
But it
I got it.
wasn't, I was a little bit, how do I again, I don't want to sound, yeah, I got wrapped up in it, but not like other people. I mean, they were bringing in small cleaning companies, right? After post construction cleaning, and they
Mm-hmm.
were bringing them in, and through the union with project labor agreements, and just putting these people through the ringer. What they did to them is it's criminal. I remember one woman came to me. She was beside herself. She was going to lose everything, and they told her in a letter that if she agreed not to be paid for the work that she did, they wouldn't charge her $10,000 a day in damages.
Oh my God.
It was the
Wow.
most obscene, brutal, bigoted situation that anyone could imagine.
It's got to mentally just tear you apart.
Well, honestly, after, and I was getting hit all different ways. And between the lawfare, and that's what I really want people in this community to understand, is that the laws in place are only as valid as the people entrusted to them.
Exactly. Mhm.
And I can tell you that we're going to jump back to that, defamation suit. I had an affidavit that I had federal witness immunity. The judge ignored it. My attorney ignored it. And I was in court for 4.5 years.
Wow.
And the legal fees were incredible. There was one case. Oh yeah, my son's reminding me of some of the things that happened. I was marked, and I was told it, but I had no idea what it meant.
What it meant, right?
I was getting pulled over by the police. I was
Yep.
getting tickets. I was assaulted by the police and arrested on a citizen's arrest. Do you believe it? For
What?
taking a picture. Yeah, for taking a picture. Not only did they arrest me,
In a public place?
yeah, and the Workers' Compensation Board. That's
Really?
another story. Oh, it was awful. Um, I found out what chicken wing meant. Yeah, when I put my hands behind my back and said, "Officer, can you please tell me why I'm being arrested?" And he laughed and pointed to the security guard, Scott Herzog, and said, "Because he said so." They do this movement. I didn't know what it was, but my friends in the city explained to me it's called being chicken winged.
Yeah,
And
I've
it's,
heard that.
have you heard it?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, they did it to me. So that gave them the opportunity to say I was resisting arrest, and they assaulted me. Not only did they assault me, I had just had my shoulder operated on for a rotator cuff,
Hmm.
and they tore it out again, and I was screaming, stop, and I got put in the back of a police car, got taken to Monroe County Jail on a citizen's arrest for trespassing because I took a picture inside the workers' comp board.
That's a public facility. There's no
I know,
expectation of privacy in public. I mean,
I know,
that's a lawsuit for you all on your own for a
I
civil
know.
rights violation.
Try to find an attorney. I'm marked. Nobody would take the case. I called every civil rights attorney that takes all these cases. Nobody
Really?
would take my case.
So these
Oh,
are some really,
absolutely.
really, really big people, big, powerful
Yes,
people. Yeah.
very powerful.
Where do you think
And
where do you think the top is? Where do you think it comes from exactly?
I know because um, I was approached by Governor Cuomo's chief of staff to be his
Wow.
poster girl for a successful woman in construction. And because of some of the people, like the state troopers and the police rubbing it in my face, that, these unfounded reports of all my complaints were going to go on Governor Cuomo's desk. Um, I would say quite a bit of it, and because of the agencies involved. Again, now I'm supposed to have protection as a federal witness. I'm supposed to have protection as a New York State whistleblower to the Attorney General. I'm supposed to have protection as a woman-owned business and a federal contractor,
Wow.
and none of the rules applied. I was investigated by the Department of Justice. I was investigated by the USDOT. I was investigated by the SBA. I was
Department of
investigated
Labor. Mhm.
Department of Labor,
Mhm.
and the Department of Defense, the criminal
Wow.
investigative. And the two gentlemen that investigated me in the Department of Defense told me the one gentleman had been doing it 30 years, and I was the first legitimate woman contractor he'd ever met. and wanted to know if I would consider, this was after an 8-hour interrogation, criminal interrogation. They were setting me up
Mhm.
for crimes. And he had asked me if I would consider being an analyst for the federal government. Because, and at the same time, the FBI had come to me and the Department of Justice, 2 separate cases, and I was cooperating with them. And
Wow.
when
How
I asked
long?
for help, my response was, nobody in New York is ever going to help you.
Wow.
And
How
that's
long
when
did it go on for?
oh, let's see. I know it. See, when this has happened to you, it's like it's still happening.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and the litigation went on for years, and I'm still fighting the corruption in the Attorney General's office. So it started, and I incorporated in 2009.
Wow.
And I'm still in a battle with the Attorney General's office, who kept me under a gag order since 2014 and won't unseal the information.
It's
And right
over a
now,
decade. It's over a decade ago.
I know.
If you're,
Holy smokes. Wow. This is incredible. You know something? Let me just butt in here for a second. I worked for the union here in upstate New York. I'm over by Utica, New York, Rome, New York, over in that area. I
Hmm.
worked for the local carpenters union here, and I
Oh,
kind of get a feel for what you're talking about with these subs coming in, these cleaning people coming in afterwards, and I got to see all that stuff firsthand too. Now I'm wondering if the people I seen maybe got the same treatment you've gotten.
it's national.
Wow. I would
It's
never have
national.
guessed that. I never would
Well,
have guessed that. I never would have guessed that. I'm not in the union now, but I was. I quit a couple years
well,
ago.
can
But
you imagine finding out that you're fighting the New Jersey Carpenters Union?
oh my God.
Yeah, I'm like, and this was in Islip, New York, Long Island. I know I'm screwing up my phone here. I'd never even heard of Islip. I'd never been to Long Island. And clearly they were violating their own uh, trust agreements, their own rules and regulations for what
Being out of
happened
state.
was, you want to hear, this is kind of funny. So right, the business agents locally, I called them up and I'm like, what are you guys doing to me? And they're, the usual, Mary Ellen, you're nuts. And they said, you're the best contractor we have. You're the only one that has any guys working. I had like 4 or 5 jobs going on at the same time in the winter.
No
My
kidding.
work was that good. And it wasn't mine. The
Right.
people that I had working for me were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I call up the chairman of the trustees and I'm like, why are you suing me? He goes, Mary Ellen, we're not suing you. You don't owe us any money. You're paid in full. I go, I know, but so it, I believe, as a result of me unraveling that they were getting a default judgment against me for $1.3 million, and all the people that should have been involved in this knew nothing about it. In my opinion, based on more research I did, this was a scam to cover up money that was being embezzled out of the unions.
Mm-hmm.
so your boss initially set you up for this.
Yes, he did.
And what
And
what,
then
what do
he
you think
set
he
out
got
to
out of it?
destroy me. He set
You,
out to destroy me.
what do you think he got out of it though?
He was going to get work that he would have not been entitled to because of my credentials.
Mm-hmm. He would have got
And
What
big
I
work,
think
big money work. Yep.
big
for the
money
buddies,
work.
for
Yep.
the
Yep.
buddies, right? The buddies,
We're
like
talking, we're
Millions.
talking, yes. And because of who I was and my credentials, he wouldn't have had to bid it. I could have, based on who I was, my experience,
Mm-hmm.
and the programs that were out there to level the playing field. Yeah, right. they would have handed me the work.
Right.
It guaranteed me 25% profit.
All right.
Wow.
So to get to have the audience and people understand, let me see if I got this straight also. So you'd bid on a contract, you throw out a contract, all
Mhm.
right? They would
Right.
say, okay, they'd have somebody else come in and say, listen, this is what we got as a price. You underbid it, you got the job. And then if they say, all right, you got the job, they get the kickback.
Right.
Am I off on that? They get the kickback, and that's how they're making money, back end
Well,
deals and
they
everything
do
else,
the
or
work.
no?
What his plan was is I was never going to do the work. I
You're
was
Right.
just going to
used.
sign. They call it a front company. I was
Hmm.
just going to sign contracts, and he was going to go in and make the money.
Right.
And it was never about the money.
You're
It was
basically an
about
invisible.
being, it was about being recognized. I was the only manager out of 13 male managers. I
Wow.
had a unique position that I worked very, very, very hard for in my career. And I just wanted the opportunity to prove I could do it. I
Hmm.
knew I could do it. I did it, even in spite of him, with him undermining me. And then, another example is, they'd bring you in to do the contracts. And I had one major one. You have to buy all the materials, you have to buy all
Hmm.
the supplies,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And you do it all, and then they kick you off the job. I had one where they stole my equipment. They stole the materials. It was a shoring system that I had fabricated. They stole it from me and sent me letters that if I came on site, they were going to arrest me.
That's unbelievable. Wow. I
You
can't
know,
believe that.
and they did it in writing. And I mean, the city of Rochester, what they did to me, unbelievable. But it wasn't just me. I don't want to, I want to let you know that this is the playbook. And I exposed the playbook and I fought back, and nobody ever had before. I had assets that most people didn't have. I had support from my husband that a lot of people didn't have. And I had incredible staff, dedicated, loyal, most of them. I had a few
Hmm.
moles.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but eh, I call them my rabbit holes, is that I found that all these programs allegedly in place to protect you and all the rules and regulations, nobody followed them and nobody cared. And that was a really harsh reality. It was another, people said, well, why didn't you sue them? Well, I don't, I should wish I would have kept a log of the
Right.
attorneys that I called. When that situation happened at the workers' comp board, I made a human rights complaint. There was a state trooper investigator that told me, just so you know, I mean, he rubbed my face in it. I'm going to investigate this. And I have affidavits from all the people in the room, and they support your story. But that's not what's going to go on the report. Your report's going to come back unfounded. And
Wow.
I think they were, because by this time,
Too bad
I
you
will
couldn't have
admit,
recorded that. Wow.
well, um, I have a lot of things recorded.
Oh, you
Um,
do? Good for you. Good.
Absolutely.
Good for
I
you.
started recording um yeah, I would say probably back in 2011 maybe.
Okay. So you got a lot of material
Oh
recorded, a lot
yeah,
of
but
evidence.
nobody cares because
Right.
this is the playbook locally. I was very, very naive, Miss Goody Two Shoes Girl Scout type of person sang in the choir. I had no idea the level of corruption and how deep it is. And I had no idea how ugly politics was, and how corrupt, especially in Monroe County, it is. So I started reporting going up the chain. And, I tell people I didn't make it 30 years with a successful career in construction by backing down. So
Right.
I went all the way to the inspector general's office of in the US.
Good for
Well,
you.
but what I didn't know is they send their investigation back to the state that it happens in. So I was back in New York again.
Oh my goodness. So of
Yeah.
course nothing's gonna happen.
No.
Hey
It's
Charles, you
systemic.
picked a good one to get us marked. I'll tell you that. You picked a good one.
So,
Oops. Can you
so
erase this now? You sure you want this
no,
to
we're
go
good. No, we're
Oh
live?
good.
no.
People need to know this stuff. People need to
That's
know this stuff.
right. Absolutely. That's why
So,
we're
so
here.
you're not part of the big club, and that's why you're getting
It
all
was
all this
more than that.
crap.
I was a rat. I was a tattletale. I pissed off my former boss, who is very, I did not know, he's very malicious. He's a monster, and I will say that publicly for what he did to me and what he told me he was going to do to me. He's a monster. He intentionally destroyed my life. He made a promise that he was going to kill me in legal fees, and he did. That was a big part of this. Um, I want to get to the part, because full disclosure with me, is I became very, very, very ill.
I'm
Uh,
sure.
I collapsed
Hmm.
mentally and physically for years. Um, I My son, who was still in grammar school, had to take care of me. It destroyed my family. It destroyed my finances, needless to say,
And your credibility, probably.
and my credibility,
Hmm.
and the legal abuse was the biggest betrayal. But I tell people, and it's really important, that the silver lining for me is finding so many other people that I could now be a voice for, because this happens. It happens everywhere. And the legal abuse that I have seen gone on in Monroe County, the crimes and the cover ups in every branch of the local, the city, the state, New York State Supreme Court, and the federal courts, that's a movie in itself.
Charles, isn't that your county?
Monroe County, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
I'll tell
goodness.
you what. I'll tell you what, Mary. That's takes a lot of courage, I think,
Hmm.
and everything you went through, and to still be standing and still being a voice. It takes a strong woman to do something like that. I can tell you right
Yeah,
now.
most people wouldn't have spoke out
They would have
after that.
crumbled. They'd
That's for
crumble.
sure.
They would crumble. But so I give you a lot. I have a lot of respect for you for still standing, and I want you to let people know, because you said that you have a documentary out there,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
give people information about the documentary, how they can find you on maybe Twitter, X,
Okay.
or and get all that
Um,
information out to people.
and Twitter is become the social media platform for me,
Okay.
because there's so many other whistleblowers that this has happened to. I was in a documentary with other whistleblowers in New York. The stories are outrageous. It makes mine look
Wow.
simplified. Um, the public corruption, anybody that exposes it, see something, say something, kiss
Hmm.
life you knew goodbye. It's brutal, and it's the government that does it to you. They're the most brutal.
The government is brutal.
Um, it's MEB, Mary Ellen Belding, MEB underscore justice. And I'm on Twitter, and on my profile, you'll see it's through VMO, and it's Whistleblowers 219. And if
219.
you want to see some courageous people and some stories that I keep if I didn't live through this, I would never have believed it. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, I believe that God carried me through this. I
Hmm.
appreciate your kind words, but this is God. I turned my life over to Him when I was literally on death's door, and prayed that He put me in the right direction, either take me and stop the pain, or I did crumble into a million pieces.
Mhm.
And God and other whistleblowers and friends in the local community and people that believed me and believed in me helped glue the pieces back together. So what I do now is I speak out for maybe people that have been through this, and I have spoken to so many that they didn't know. And it's not just minority in businesses. This happens in family court, it happens in civil court, it happens in surrogates
They're
court.
all corrupt. They're all corrupt.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yep, they
Yeah.
are. They are. Hey, let me ask you a question real quick. What would have happened and where do you think you would be today if you never researched your name that evening, that you researched it and found all this stuff that you were being sued? Would you still be in the construction industry, you think?
Oh no, they
No.
sabotaged me. They wanted me gone.
Okay, so even after, or even before you seen your name on the computer
Oh
for being
yeah.
sued. Oh,
Oh,
okay,
that was
okay.
just a tiny bit of it.
I
They
got you.
were
Okay.
sabotaging my projects. They weren't paying me for work. They were. I used to have to stay up all night and go sit at my job so my equipment wasn't stolen, or they would.
Really? Wow.
I mean, they tried to. This is a anybody will. Um, they tried to have me arrested federally by the EPA for dumping concrete into the Irondequoit Bay. Um, Little did they know that I was working with the Department of Justice and the EPA, and they knew I didn't do it. But that is
Okay.
one. They tried to. I was
So it
working on some
backfired.
culvert pipes, and they punctured holes in them, and
Wow.
it was. I was running around with a fire extinguisher on my back, and the targeting, um, and the sabotage. I had my computer sanitized. I had break-ins. I had money embezzled from me. The stories are too numerous,
That's
to even
incredible.
believe that it's fathomable. But someone said, "Well, why didn't you just quit?" And I don't know. I That wasn't my personality. As
Mhm.
I said, I didn't make it 30 years in construction and make it as far as I did by being a quitter.
Right.
And then I started to have battle my own attorneys. I had to start buying transcripts and sneaking around investigating my attorneys to find out that they had sabotaged me. And
Wow.
that's when it sounds a little crazy. That's when that I left the part out that I had to go through a federal competency hearing because I was starting to expose the judges and attorneys publicly on Facebook. Um, I didn't care.
Sounds like me.
You
Yeah,
invited me to the dance. If you don't want me to talk about it, you should have never done it to me.
that's right. Yep.
And so next thing you know, um, I'm it's they tried to put me under a guardianship, saying I was crazy, trying to cover up their crimes. And through the grace of God, uh, this attorney took my case pro bono. He believed me, and uh, the other whistleblowers. We'd finished our first documentary, and they came and testified for me and played the documentary for the judge. And a gentleman I met um, through Craig's list. He was known for as Simon DeGrump. He
Mm.
he picked me up with a sponge and started helping me um, recover and help me have my voice out there. And I got stronger, and I was found to be quite competent. Let me put it that way. Pretty angry, severe PTSD, anxiety, but I
Mhm.
was never crazy.
So,
That's what they try to label everybody when they don't get their own way. You're
Right.
crazy.
She's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
yep. So, so you're Mary Ellen Belding on Facebook,
Yeah,
and
no,
if
Mary Ellen Belding on Twitter.
okay,
It's MEB_justice. And on Facebook, it's Mary Ellen Joy.
okay,
Joy was my maiden name.
Mary Ellen Joy. We're
Right.
gonna look you
okay,
up. Mhm.
Good. Thank you.
okay. So yeah, so people could get all sorts of information on the Twitter page, correct? You have like
Right.
all the information there. So if people want to, okay, yeah, it looks like Jason Andrews put the link out on there. I'm want me to show you the link for the Twitter. Here we
Yeah,
That
go.
go
would be
ahead. Put it up,
great.
Charles. Put it up.
All right. So
Let's.
Thank you.
I wasn't putting people were making comments and stuff. I wasn't putting them up there because I didn't want a distraction. I figured you had a lot to say, and I didn't want to put any of the comments up
I
there.
think she has a lot more to say too. This might go into another show.
I'd
I know.
love it. I'd love it. You
If
We
guys
you
have
want
love
to,
it
no
too.
idea.
so
I just to have people, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. It was a living nightmare. More importantly, I want people to know that I was at the lowest of low. I would drive across the Bay Bridge and pray that God would take my life. The pain was
well,
so incredible. And it was so surreal. I just, everything you've ever been taught to believe about the government, about
Mhm.
lawyers, about judges, about police, it was such a betrayal. But I want everybody to know that there is a light. There is light. There is recovery. Yeah, I still had tears,
Mhm.
but I had to learn. I was so damaged, traumatized that I had lost my vocabulary. I could say I can't find my words. I can't find my words. And obviously I found my words. Um, I never lost the four-letter ones. I have to be honest, but
Yeah.
that's another for another time.
well, you
Um,
lost them during the show, anyways.
well, is my tongue bleeding? No. But I want people to know that you're not alone, and if you ever need to talk to somebody, you need somebody to listen and to understand. I believe you. That is the biggest thing about people that this has happened to. One of the common denominators is people that have gone through something like this, that have been gaslighted, that have been
Mhm.
damaged by as a whistleblower. This is not uncommon, unfortunately. You see it going on right now, and I tried it, not that I'm President Trump, but you see watching what's going on in the court systems around the country,
Yeah.
and I lived it. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you will survive. You will. I promise you. People told me that, and I didn't believe it. But I'm here to tell you, I promise you, you
All
will
right.
survive.
Let me ask you this: did you try going to any? This is a crazy question. Going to any news networks?
Oh,
Try to
God.
get. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I know it's a crazy question, but did you
Right.
try it? And if you did, what happened?
Let's see. I nobody locally would touch me. Nobody. Um, I had a Pulitzer Prize when this first started. I contacted David K. Johnson, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter. I worked with him for 9 months, and my story was supposed to. This is before any of this other stuff happened. This was just in the initial sabotage. This was like
Wow.
in 2012,
He
maybe.
probably got scared off. Huh.
He did. two
Yeah.
weeks before it was supposed to be published, I never heard from him again.
Wow.
Um, I did, oh, Undercover DC was wonderful. They did a 2-part story on me and then another woman who was harmed in Rochester. That's pretty incredible part of the story too. Um, she was being mobbed by the same man.
Really?
Yeah, but
Wow.
she didn't know it. She was the lead architect for the city of Rochester. 26-year impeccable career in charge of all the buildings in the city of Rochester. And she got in his way. And he went after her and they destroyed her. I hired a private investigator to find her because she pretty much went underground.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
yeah, awful, awful story.
Is
But
the name of this business or the name of your ex-boss by any chance in this documentary? Because I think some folks
yes,
would like to have that. Okay, perfect.
yeah, there's
Perfect.
pictures of his company.
Oh,
Absolutely.
all right. Perfect.
Um, as I said, if you don't want me to talk about it, and yeah, I stood up in her wedding. She's my BFF. She just came over for dinner for my birthday,
Oh,
and
nice.
God put us together to hold each other up, and we
Mm-hmm.
did. Because we were both the maybe in the next show, if you invite me back,
Absolutely. We definitely want you
Sure.
back.
Yeah.
I'd like to share some of the details of how far they went to intentionally destroy our lives and careers and finances. And that's part of the playbook.
You know what would be a real kicker? Because you have a lot of connections because you were in the construction business for so long. Maybe you should open a construction company and get people like us to come work for you
Oh, for
out
the
in that
love of
area.
God. Are you kidding me? No. Do you know people still ask me? And do you want to do it or because of safety? Will you come and do some safety? No.
No kidding. Yeah, I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. Not
You know
after
what
all
I
that.
said? I wanted well, I'm technically disabled, but I said I want my retirement job. I wanted to be in a large, maybe an airport or convention center, and say men's room to the left, ladies' room to the right. Give people the answers they want to hear and never have to see them again.
Right.
Because no, I would never ever go back into business. Ever.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I wouldn't either if something like
Well,
that
New
happened to
York,
me. That's crazy.
New York makes it tough right off the bat, anyways, for anybody to start any kind of business.
Mhm.
Right.
They make it
They
tough.
really don't
Very.
want to. Right.
No,
No.
they don't want the. Yeah. Anyhow, all right, let's call it a night. But let's do this again.
Thanks.
If you
Yeah.
want to get more into detail, we'll call it part two.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's do that
Part
next
two.
Wednesday. That way we can guarantee it. We can get this shared out because I'm pretty sure once people start to hear this story, they're really going to want to hear the rest of it.
You want
Well,
to
thank
come
you.
back next Wednesday? You want to come back next Wednesday and get
I would be
into
happy to.
detail?
I
All
would
right.
Okay.
be happy
Perfect.
to.
Perfect.
Yeah, you guys tell me if you think what you'd like to hear more about. I'd like to really be specific on the retaliation and how far they went with the cover-ups.
I'd
It's
like
pretty
to hear that.
incredible.
I'd like to hear that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, right now, if anybody that's listening or anybody that listens, throw if any questions, maybe
Yeah,
we'll do like a question thing next week also.
that'd
People
be
could ask
great.
questions and I'll pop it up. I just didn't want to do it tonight because we would have been on here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to start popping things
I
up.
think
But
she has enough story here. We could probably be on here for 5 or 6 hours.
Uh,
Or
I bet
days.
you I could keep you busy till next year.
we can do a mini series, right? Do a mini series.
Absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
this is terrible. I'm sorry that happened to you. This is terrible.
Thank
I never envisioned the unions doing that.
Neither did
I
I.
never seen it.
Neither did I. But
Hmm.
they had another plan for me, and when I didn't do what I was told, I paid a high price. And
Hmm.
so did a lot of other people. I'm one of the survivors. There's a lot of people that didn't.
So you know a lot more people in your area that maybe can come on the show and tell their side of the story as well. Not to confirm what you're saying, but just because I believe you 150%. Just to tell their side of the story too. Maybe it happened through a different company or something like that. Or did it happen all within the same company?
Oh no. This
There are
is
multiple companies.
yeah, this is the playbook.
Okay.
I'll try, but I have to be honest with you. I'm really the only one that's spoken out.
Yeah, I
It's
know a lot of
pretty
people.
dangerous. It's pretty
It is.
dangerous.
It is. I can imagine it. It's pretty dangerous. Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're going to call it a night. So let's plan it for
Okay.
next week. If anybody who has
Thanks,
any
guys.
questions or anything they want to throw in the comments, and then look her up on Twitter X or Facebook, but you'll get all the information on Twitter X.
Thank you so much. I
Right.
really appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
Mary.
you.
And I'm going to talk to somebody we talked about earlier. I messaged you, and I'll give them a text tomorrow and see if we can set something up that we talked about earlier.
Sounds
So,
good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Everybody,
night.
have a good
Thank
night. We'll
you.
see
You as
everybody
well.
next week. We'll see
Bye.
everybody next week with Mary.
Have a good night, everybody.
You
Good night.
too.